Subscribe to the channel and hear even more exciting stories. My journey from betrayal to unexpected forgiveness. Hey Reddit, throwaway account because some people in my life know my main. I don't really know why I'm posting except that I can't seem to get this story out of my head, and maybe someone here will get it, or at least not judge me as much as my own brain does. So, background. I, 28F, have known my best friend, Zoe, 28F, since we were both the awkward new kids in middle school. We survived acne, terrible haircuts, mean girls, prom drama, and breakups together. She was the person I called at 2 a.m. when my dog had to be put down, and I was the one who sat with her through her parents' divorce. People always joke that we were soulmates, just platonically. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said I trusted her more than anyone, sometimes more than myself. There were never really warning signs, or at least none I paid attention to. Sure, Zoe could be a little self-centered. She had a flair for the dramatic and sometimes took more than she gave. But I always chalked that up to her being a little lost, or just Zoe being Zoe. Our friendship was this anchor I never thought would move, no matter how stormy things got. If you're expecting a story about cheating or some big, obvious betrayal, this isn't it. Well, not at first. It was quieter, sneakier, the kind of thing you miss because you don't want to see it. And looking back, maybe that's what hurts the most, not just what she did, but how blind I was to it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The first crack in the foundation didn't come until last spring, and, of course, it started with something stupid, an accidental Venmo request for money I never spent. So, about that Venmo request. One random Thursday morning, I woke up to a $250 request from Zoe with the caption, "For concert tickets last weekend, smiley face." Thing is, I didn't go to any concert. I hadn't even seen Zoe in a couple of weeks. At first, I thought she'd made a mistake, so I texted her, joking, "You inviting my bank account to concerts now?" No reply. Hours later, she sent back a single thumbs-up emoji, like I was the one being weird. I tried to brush it off, but it bugged me. That afternoon, I got a call from our mutual friend Maddie, asking if I'd paid Zoe back for the tickets yet. Maddie started describing an epic night out. How I'd apparently bailed last minute, leaving Zoe stranded with 2 extra tickets she couldn't sell. Except, newsflash, I'd never even agreed to go. I scrolled back through our messages, hunting for any sign I'd missed plans, but nope, nothing. Just Zoe vaguely mentioning she was thinking of going, and me replying, "Let me know if you need company." That's when it clicked. Zoe was telling people I'd flaked and owed her money, but never actually invited me in the first place. It was so petty, so random, I almost laughed. But then I checked my Venmo history and realized this wasn't the first time. There were smaller requests for drinks, dinners, even ride shares I knew we'd split or that I'd paid for. All amounts that wouldn't raise an eyebrow, but over months it added up to a lot. I felt stupid for not noticing. The worst part wasn't even the money, honestly. It was realizing my best friend had been using me, and I hadn't seen it at all. The shock hit first. A weird, cold heaviness in my chest. I sat on my bed staring at my phone, refreshing Venmo, as if the notifications would magically rewrite themselves. I kept thinking, no, this can't be right. Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe she's short on cash and just didn't know how to ask for help. But as the minutes passed, denial curdled into anger. Real, stomach-burning anger that made my hands shake. A million memories replayed in my head. The birthday gifts I'd bought for her, the times I'd covered her half of the check because she forgot her wallet, the job she'd lost, and the night I stayed up with her while she cried. I'd always thought of us as a team. Now I felt like the punchline in some long-running joke. I wanted to scream at her, or text something snarky, or just Venmo her a single cent with a middle finger emoji. Instead, I did what I always do. I called my mom. I barely got 3 sentences out before my voice cracked. My mom was gentle, but I could hear her bracing for drama. She's always said Zoe was a bit much, but she never pressed. "Honey," she said, "maybe you need to talk to her, really talk. Don't let this fester." But I wasn't ready for that. I spent the weekend in a fog, alternating between overanalyzing our entire friendship and making dramatic playlists like a teenager. I texted Zoe a couple more times, but her replies were slow, clipped, and weirdly defensive. At one point, she even wrote, "Don't be so uptight. You know I'm good for it," with a winky face. I almost threw my phone out the window. That Saturday night, Maddie sent a group chat meme about fake friends, and Zoe responded with a laughing emoji. I felt like the universe was mocking me. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed every moment I doubted myself, every little thing I'd let slide. By Sunday, my anger had settled into a hollow ache. I realized I wasn't just mad at Zoe. I was mad at myself for being so blind, for wanting to believe the best in her even when the signs were all there. I knew I couldn't keep avoiding the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I've always hated confrontation, but I also hate feeling like an idiot, so I decided to get my facts straight before talking to Zoe. I started by scrolling back through 2 years of texts, Venmo requests, DMs, and even old group chat screenshots. Patterns started to emerge: little "forgot to pay you" messages, casual IOUs that somehow never got settled, and jokes about me being the bank of the friend group. At first, I'd laughed along. Now, every haha felt like a slap. I went through my banking app and receipts. Sure enough, the numbers matched. I'd picked up brunch more times than I could count, fronted cash for concerts I never went to, and covered more than my share on road trips. I sent screenshots to Maddie and a couple of our close friends, asking if they'd noticed anything weird. Maddie replied immediately, "Honestly, I've been wondering, but I didn't want to stir things up. She owes me, too." Our friend Sarah chimed in, saying Zoe had a habit of forgetting debts and getting defensive if pressed. Fueled by a mix of hurt and stubbornness, I confronted Zoe in the group chat. I kept it as neutral as possible, just laid out the facts and asked if we could talk. Zoe's reply was instant and icy. "Wow, are we really doing this? You're going to air our dirty laundry in front of everyone? I thought you were my friend." She didn't answer the actual question. I texted her privately, trying again. Her tone got sharper, shifting blame. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's not like you're broke." She even tossed in, "I thought you understood I'm having a tough year." It was classic Zoe. Turn the conversation, make me feel guilty for noticing it all. The hardest part was realizing I'd enabled this. Every time I'd paid and let it slide, every time I'd avoided awkward conversations to keep the peace, I'd sent the message that my feelings and my money didn't matter. The investigation hurt, but it made things painfully clear. This wasn't about money. It was about respect, and mine had gone missing a long time ago. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night, in the middle of a rainstorm, which felt way too on the nose for my mood. After our tense group chat, Zoe went silent for days. I barely slept, swinging between rage, guilt, and the kind of exhaustion that makes you want to move to a cabin in the woods and never speak to anyone again. Then she called. No text first, just my phone ringing at 10:30 p.m. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity and stubbornness won out. Her voice was tight, brittle, like she'd been rehearsing. She started with, "I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this. If you really cared about our friendship, you'd just drop it." No apology, just more deflection. For once, I didn't let her off the hook. I told her exactly how I felt: used, disrespected, and embarrassed for trusting her. I listed specific examples, my voice shaking but steady enough. Zoe tried to laugh it off. "Come on, it's just money. You know I'm bad with cash." But when I brought up the other friends she'd shortchanged, her tone changed. Suddenly, she was defensive, even angry. "So now you're turning everyone against me? Wow, great friend." I asked her why she'd lied about the concert tickets. She went quiet, then mumbled something about needing extra cash and not knowing how else to ask. She accused me of abandoning her for not being there enough lately. The conversation twisted itself into knots. One minute she was crying, the next, blaming me. Every attempt at honesty from my side was met with sarcasm or guilt-tripping. Finally, I just stopped. I told her I needed time and space, that I couldn't keep pretending nothing happened. Her last words before hanging up, "I guess I know where I stand now." The call ended, and so did something inside me. Not just the trust, but the idea that our friendship could bounce back with a simple apology. I sat in the dark, listening to the rain, feeling both heartbroken and, strangely, lighter. The worst had finally been said, and there was nothing left to do but sit with the truth. The days after that call felt like wandering through a ghost town. Everything familiar, but nothing the same. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, searching for a sentence I could have said differently, a way to have fixed it. My phone was strangely silent. The group chat, once a stream of memes and plans, slowed to a trickle. A few friends reached out privately. Maddie texted, "You did the right thing." She needed to hear it. But even her reassurance couldn't touch the ache inside me. I tried to distract myself with work, movies, endless doom scrolling. But the grief was physical, a knot in my stomach, tightness in my chest. I'd always heard about friendship breakups being just as painful as romantic ones, but I hadn't believed it until now. I didn't just lose Zoe. I lost the idea of us, the easy comfort of our shared history, the reflex to text her first about literally anything. Every notification made my heart jump, hoping it was her, terrified it would be. Self-doubt crept in, whispering, "Maybe you overreacted. Maybe you're too sensitive." But then I'd remember the evidence, the hurt in Maddie and Sarah's voices, the exhaustion of always being the one to forgive and forget. I realized I'd been shrinking myself for years, tolerating little slights and making excuses for bad behavior in the name of being a good friend. Social events became awkward. People asked where Zoe was, and I'd shrug, offering a vague, "We're taking some space." Some friends chose sides, others just drifted away. My mom kept checking in, bringing over groceries and hugs, sensing I needed company even if I couldn't say so. I felt untethered, raw, but also, for the first time in a long while, honest, with myself and everyone else. Nights were the hardest. That's when the loneliness hit, when forgiveness felt impossible and anger felt like the only thing keeping me warm. But beneath all of it was a stubborn little hope that maybe, somehow, I'd come out stronger on the other side. After a couple of weeks, the rawness dulled just enough for me to think clearly. The initial anger faded, replaced by a strange, empty space I didn't know how to fill. I found myself remembering the good moments with Zoe, the sleepovers, road trips, all the times we'd been there for each other. It almost felt like grief for someone who was still alive. I started journaling, something I hadn't done since high school, just to make sense of my thoughts. I wrote out every memory, every disappointment, every red flag I'd ignored because I wanted to believe the best in her. That process hurt, but it also brought perspective. I saw my own patterns, how I'd been scared to stand up for myself, how I avoided hard conversations in the name of keeping peace, how I let my loyalty override my self-respect. Therapy was the next step, though it took me 3 tries to find someone I clicked with. My therapist gently pointed out that forgiveness isn't just for the other person, it's for yourself, too. Letting go of anger means making space for something new to grow, whether that's another friendship or just a better sense of self-worth. I spent more time with the friends who stayed. I learned to say no without guilt, to set small boundaries and stick to them, to be okay with disappointing people who expected me to put their needs before my own. It was messy, and there were setbacks. I'd still catch myself wanting to text Zoe when something funny happened, still feel a pang at old photos. Slowly, the heaviness lifted. I realized I could miss someone and still accept that they hurt me. I could grieve what was good without pretending the bad never happened. In the quiet moments, I found a new kind of peace, not forgetting, but forgiving myself for letting things go on so long. And that, unexpectedly, was the start of healing. A month after that last stormy phone call, I got a message from Zoe. It was short, just, "Hey, can we talk?" But my heart started pounding all the same. I stared at the screen for ages, fighting the urge to delete it, rereading it like there might be a secret apology hidden between the lines. I almost said no. Part of me wanted to keep the walls up, protect myself from another round of blame or half-apologies. But curiosity, and maybe hope, got the better of me. We met at a little park near our old school, Neutral Ground. It was weirdly quiet, with that awkward tension you get when you run into someone you once knew by heart. Zoe looked different, older, tired, no trace of her usual bravado. She didn't launch into excuses or jokes. Instead, she just said, "I messed up." I was so caught up in my own problems that I didn't care who I hurt. "I'm sorry." No drama, no deflection, just honesty. We talked for a long time. She told me about her struggles. Her job loss had hit harder than I realized. She'd racked up debt, was embarrassed and scared, and, yes, had started leaning on friends in ways that weren't fair. She said it wasn't an excuse, just the truth. She didn't ask for forgiveness, only wanted me to know she understood what she'd done. Hearing her take real responsibility knocked something loose in me. I found myself letting go of some of the anger I'd been holding like a shield. We didn't solve everything in one conversation, and there was no hugging or need. We're all good now ending. But for the first time, it felt possible to see Zoe as a whole person, flawed, hurting, and trying to do better. Walking home, I realized that forgiveness wasn't about pretending nothing happened. It was about letting myself breathe again, with or without her in my life. After that talk in the park, I spent days replaying every word Zoe said. I could tell she was genuinely remorseful. There was a vulnerability I hadn't seen in her before. I wrestled with what forgiveness even meant. Did it mean inviting her back into my life? Or just letting go of the resentment that had settled like a heavy stone in my chest? I didn't rush myself. I journaled, talked to my therapist, and took long walks with no music, just me and my thoughts. I realized that forgiving Zoe didn't have to mean pretending everything was fine, or that we'd pick up where we left off. It could be quieter, a conscious decision to stop carrying the weight of old anger. I wanted peace more than I wanted payback. A week later, I texted Zoe. It was short, just, "Thank you for being honest. I appreciate your apology. I'm still hurt, but I'm trying to move forward. I hope you are too." She replied almost instantly, not pushing for more, just a simple, "I understand. Thank you for listening." It wasn't a grand reunion, but it felt real. We started talking, a little bit at a time, occasional check-ins, sending each other memes or updates about mutual friends. The trust wasn't instantly restored, but the bitterness faded. I could look at our history without wincing, and when I thought of Zoe, it wasn't with anger anymore. Sometimes, forgiveness is less about the other person and more about giving yourself permission to heal. I noticed a change in other relationships, too. I was less afraid to ask for what I needed, quicker to spot red flags, and kinder to myself when I made mistakes. Letting go of old grudges gave me space for new joy and better boundaries. I didn't realize how heavy it all was until I finally put it down. Zoe and I aren't what we were, but we're something new. Maybe that's what forgiveness really is, not erasing the past, but allowing for a future that isn't shaped by it. Looking back, I never could have predicted where this story would lead. If you'd told me a year ago that my closest friendship would implode and then slowly, painfully rebuild itself into something smaller but more honest, I wouldn't have believed you. Betrayal felt like a dead end at first, like nothing good could grow from so much hurt. But life has a weird way of surprising you. What I learned is that forgiveness isn't one grand gesture. It's 1,000 tiny choices: to let go, to breathe, to stop replaying the worst moments on an endless loop. Some days, the anger would sneak back in, or the sadness, or the longing for how things were before. That's normal. Healing isn't a straight line, and forgiving someone doesn't mean you owe them a place in your life. Sometimes forgiveness is just giving yourself permission to move on. For anyone reading this who's been betrayed by a friend, a partner, a family member, please know that your pain is real, and you're allowed to feel all of it. Don't rush the process. You don't have to forgive right away, or even at all, if you're not ready. But if you ever do get there, know that it doesn't mean you were weak or naive. It means you chose your own peace over carrying someone else's mistakes forever. If I could go back and tell my old self anything, it would be, trust your gut. Don't ignore the small hurts just to keep the peace. And don't be afraid to set boundaries, even with people you love. You deserve friends who respect you, not just when things are easy, but when they're messy, too. Thanks for letting me share my story, Reddit. If even one person feels a little less alone because of it, all the heartbreak and awkward growth spurts will have been worth it.